Hello family. Welcome to Morales Stories, your home for gripping African tales. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Now sit back and enjoy the drama. Leila Thomas paused at the curb outside Ethan Aldridge's family mansion, her heart hammering as if it had its own agenda. The towering wrought-iron gates loomed ahead, flanked by hedges clipped into geometric perfection that stretched along the private road. She inhaled a steadying breath, tasting jasmine on the breeze and the faint tang of expensive cologne. Ethan offered her a reassuring smile as he slipped from behind the wheel of his black electric sedan. He adjusted his cufflinks with casual precision, the kind only old money could afford. "You ready?" he asked, voice gentle. Leila nodded, her throat tight. She smoothed her navy blue sheath dress and accepted his hand, letting him guide her across the cobblestone drive. At the top of the marble steps, a uniformed valet met them, black gloves snapping as he took their car keys. Leila noted the way his posture softened when he glanced at her, as though he recognized something rare beneath her composed exterior. But she gave only a polite nod and accepted the door, intent on keeping her own counsel. Inside the foyer, crystal chandeliers hung like frozen fireworks above a checkered marble floor. Portraits of Aldridge ancestors lined the walls, their aristocratic gazes following Leila as she crossed the room. A private chef in a white toque glided past, carrying a dish that steamed with delicate spice. Beyond double doors, muted laughter signaled the dining room beyond. Margot Aldridge stood to greet them. She was vision in cream silk, pearls gracing her delicate neck. Her platinum hair was swept into an elegant chignon. Margot's smile was warm, yet her eyes gleamed with the calculated appraisal of a queen surveying her court. "Leila, darling," she cooed, inclining to air-kiss her cheek. "Welcome to our home." Leila lifted her chin. "Thank you, Mrs. Aldridge. It's an honor." Inwardly, she noted the precision of Margot's manicure, the faint scent of white tea and sandalwood that trailed her. She studied the other woman's posture, unflinching, perfect, and steeled herself for what lay ahead. Margot led them into the dining room, where Charles Aldridge sat at the head of a mahogany table. The room was bathed in the glow of candle sconces and a roaring fireplace. The table was set for 5, each place marked with a gold-engraved card. 2 empty seats waited at the center for the Aldridge matriarch and patriarch. Margot took her seat to Leila's right. Charles, resplendent in charcoal gray, raised his glass of scotch in greeting. "Leila, welcome," he said, voice low and steady. His gaze was appraising, dragging across her posture, her eyes, the polished sheen of her hair. Leila met his toast with calm resolve. Ethan sat beside her, placing a gentle hand on her back. Servers moved with silent precision, placing hors d'oeuvres, oysters on crushed ice, fig and brie crostini, and delicate cucumber rolls. Before them, soft piano music drifted from hidden speakers. Conversation started lightly: Ethan's venture capital fund, a recent yacht trip in the Mediterranean, a charity gala Margot had hosted. Leila contributed anecdotes from her work as a software developer, debugging midnight code, mentoring engineers, pitching concepts to skeptical investors. She spoke with frank confidence, hoping to bridge 2 worlds, her humble beginnings and his patrician legacy. Margot sipped her rose and leaned forward. "Leila, dear, you've accomplished so much in tech. But have you considered that life can be more enriching than lines of code?" Leila chose her words carefully. "I've found purpose in creating solutions, making people's lives easier. But I'm always open to new experiences." Margot smiled, though something flickered behind her eyes. "That's lovely. Family, travel, hosting, there's much to enjoy. But of course, we want to protect our legacy." She glanced at Charles. He nodded, sliding a manila envelope across the table toward Leila. Leila's pulse surged. The envelope landed between her lobster risotto and the flickering candle. She looked to Ethan, whose face was painfully neutral. "Mom?" he said softly. Margot's tone was disarmingly sweet. "Only a simple formality. A prenup." She tapped the envelope, "Just to protect the family assets." She raised her glass. "I'm sure you understand." Leila's hand trembled. She recalled her first paycheck, figuring out her taxes, and the pride she felt. She recalled every late-night coding session, every rejection, every triumph that had brought her here. She looked at the envelope and took a measured breath. Of course. Opening it, she found a concise agreement, 1 page of fine print. She scanned the clauses, felt the weight of each word. When she raised her pen, time seemed to slow. With deliberate calm, she signed, initialed the page, and slid the papers back. Her heart thudded in her ears, but her face remained composed. Margot's smile returned, triumphant yet contained. Wonderful. Now, shall we continue? Leila nodded, forcing a smile as the servers cleared the envelope. Margot engaged Ethan in chatter about his childhood gymnastics photos. Charles offered Leila notes on philanthropic boards. Leila answered politely but felt each word lodge in her throat. She finished her risotto, praised the chef's technique, and allowed the tiramisu to melt on her tongue. Yet every bite tasted of ash. The candlelight danced on Margot's pearls, and Leila imagined them as shackles glowing too brightly to ignore. When coffee arrived, Leila excused herself and made her way to the guest suite. In the hallway, she paused before another portrait, an Aldridge matriarch whose expression seemed carved in marble. Leila shook off the shiver and entered her room. Margot's chosen decor surrounded her, silk drapes, mirrored nightstands, 6 cocktail dresses in shades of watercress. She opened the wardrobe and ran her fingers over the fabric, chiffon, lace, sequins. Dresses she would wear to dinners she had not chosen. She closed the door and stood on the plush carpet, silence settling around her like a velvet cloak. Leila thought of her mother's words, "Never let anyone dictate your value." She thought of the startup that had kept her awake for nights. She thought of every line of code she'd written that had solved problems and created opportunities. She refused to see herself as defined by a signature on a prenup. Downstairs, Ethan rapped lightly on the door. She opened it. His eyes were troubled, shadows under them. "I'm sorry," he said, stepping inside. She offered a small nod. "I know." She crossed to the window and looked out at the manicured lawns. "They see me as a guest, not a partner." Ethan closed the distance and placed a hand on her shoulder. "I wish they knew the real you." His voice caught. "They'll come around." Leila turned to him. "They invited me into their world, but they forgot they were inviting me to a life that's mine as much as theirs." He swallowed. "Leila, you amaze me." She rested her hand on his. "Tomorrow is a new day." She offered him a tired smile. "Right now, I need sleep." He watched her, conflicted. She reached up and kissed his cheek. "Good night." Alone, Leila lay in the down comforter, eyes open to the ceiling. The echo of Maxwell's code, her first program, danced in her mind, reminding her that creation and control were part of her DNA. She closed her eyes and vowed silently, this dinner changed everything. And she would never let anyone write the rest of her story. As she drifted between wakefulness and sleep, her mind raced through possibilities. She pictured spreadsheets of investments, trust documents, and her lawyer's steely grin. A map of her next moves spread out before her like code waiting to compile. One breath, one decision, reclaim her power. Tomorrow she would begin to build a future defined not by someone else's expectations, but by her own ambition, integrity, and unbreakable will. And unwavering self-belief sparkled within her quietly now. Leila awoke to sunlight slanting through towering windows and the distant hum of traffic beyond the gated estate. She stretched in the king-size bed of the guest suite that Margot had decorated herself, white silk duvets, mirrored nightstands holding bone china tea sets, and a wardrobe stocked with designer cocktail dresses in muted pastels. For dinner parties, Margot had said. Leila hadn't asked but unwrapped the still-tagged frocks at her own risk. She dressed in simple black trousers and a crisp blouse, comfort over couture, and stepped into the hallway. The marble floors echoed her footsteps. She passed walls hung with oil portraits of Aldridge ancestors, stern men in tails and ladies in hoop skirts, their painted gazes following her across generations. Somewhere behind closed doors, the private chef prepared breakfast, brioche French toast, smoked salmon frittata, and delicate fruit tarts. In the expansive kitchen, A uniformed chef offered her a warm smile. "Good morning, Miss Thomas. Eggs to your liking?" "Over easy, please," Leila said, returning the smile. The chef nodded and vanished behind swinging doors. Leila perched on a bar stool at the marble island, taking in the gleaming appliances and polished copper pots. She loved clean lines, efficient design, traits she applied in her code. But this room was an overwhelming demonstration of extravagance. Ethan joined her, tousled from sleep, running a hand through his hair. He sank onto the stool next to her. "Morning," he murmured, curiosity and concern in his eyes. "How are you?" She sipped her coffee. "Better than I expected." She forced a grin. "It's just a lot." He nodded. "I know. But they mean well." He reached across and brushed her hand. "You'll be part of the family soon." Leila looked out the window at the perfectly manicured gardens. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm joining a family or signing a lease." They shared a quiet laugh, but the weight of that silence lingered long after. At lunch, Margot invited her to a private lounge off the main wing, Egyptian cotton chaise lounges, gilded accents, shelves of leather-bound books. The matriarch gestured to an ornate table set with crystal glasses. "Darling, let's discuss your wardrobe for the gala next week." Leila sat, resisting impulse to recoil. Margot presented a color swatch book. "I think emerald green will complement your eyes." Leila kept her tone light. "Emerald is beautiful. But I wondered, do you have something in navy? It's my favorite." Margot's hand stilled on the swatch. "Navy? Oh, I suppose. But I find bright colors more festive." She smiled then, as if humoring a child. Leila had learned that patrician kindness often carried a sting. Later that afternoon, Leila retreated to her suite, unzipping the dresses Margot had selected. Each garment felt like a costume. She slid out of her pants and into a flowing cocktail dress in guava pink, the fabric whisper-light but glaring in its audacity. She caught her reflection, a woman lost in a room sized for an empress. Her phone buzzed. A message from her manager. A critical security patch was due by tomorrow. She massaged her temples. Her career mattered, her passion. But here, in this gilded cage, passion seemed trivial. At dinner, the Aldridge patriarch joined them with brusque courtesy. The table was set with silver domes and courses that seemed to multiply: foie gras amuse-bouche, truffle risotto, rack of lamb crusted in pistachios. Conversation turned to philanthropy: Margot's art fund, Charles's scholarship endowment. Leila offered congratulations, praising their commitments. But then Charles cleared his throat. "Leila, your work in tech is admirable. Yet I can't help but think how fulfilling it might be to step back, perhaps take a sabbatical? There are so many ways you could help our foundation." Leila paused, fork halfway to her lips. "A sabbatical?" Charles leaned forward, tone sincere. "Coding can be so parochial. With privilege comes responsibility. Imagine directing funds for girls in STEM, hosting workshops, lending your insight to our programs." Ethan watched her intently, expression unreadable. Leila forced a smile. "I value the foundation's goals. But coding is my way of helping. It's not just a job. It's creativity and problem-solving on a massive scale." Margot nodded, though her eyes were cool. "Of course. Yet family is precious. We hope you'll consider balance." Balance. A word that felt like a leash. Leila looked at the chandelier's crystal droplets, each refracted light a diminutive prism of control. After dinner, she excused herself and walked the corridors, shoes whispering on marble. She passed a library lined with first editions, peeked into a conservatory where orchids bloomed in geometric perfection. Everywhere she looked, beauty was curated, commissioned, controlled. A glass castle built on invisible boundaries. She returned to her suite and changed into jeans and a sweater, something that felt like her. She sank onto the chaise lounge, heart pounding. She placed a call to her best friend, Nina, in New York. "Leila? What's wrong?" Nina's voice was immediate concern. Leila exhaled. "They want me to quit coding." Nina's gasp crackled through the line. "What? After everything you've built?" Leila recounted the dinner, her father-in-law's suggestion, Margot's wardrobe edicts, Ethan's awkward silence. Nina swore gently. They think you're a trophy, not a partner. Leila pressed her forehead against the phone. I can't live like this. I'm suffocating. Nina's voice hardened. Listen, Leila, you belong in the tech world, not in some fishbowl. You didn't work your tail off to be their ornament. Leila closed her eyes. I know. But I love Ethan. And he loves you, Nina said firmly. He just needs a push. Leila thought of Ethan sitting beside her at breakfast. He cared, but he always defaulted to his parents' world. She balanced loyalty and self-preservation on a fraying line. After the call, she drafted an email to her manager explaining her schedule changes and subtly reaffirming her priorities. She deleted the note and instead wrote, "Please schedule that call with the security team tomorrow morning. It can't wait." She hit send. The next morning, Leila arrived at a local co-working space under the guise of a girls in tech meetup. In reality, she set up her laptop to finalize that critical patch. As code lines scrolled on the screen, she felt an electric pulse of purpose. The world beyond the castle walls was messy, unpredictable, and thrilling. By noon, her phone pinged with approvals, patch clearances, congratulatory messages from teammates, and a video call request from a startup founder in Berlin. Leila accepted. For 2 hours, she discussed architecture diagrams, latency improvements, and user privacy protocols. Her passion flared, voice animated, eyes bright. Back at the mansion, Margot watched Leila on a discreet security monitor in the drawing room. Ethan, she said, voice low, have you noticed Leila's priorities? Ethan frowned. I thought she enjoyed mentoring those girls. Margot's lips tightened. There's mentoring and there's neglect. She wants her own world. Ethan hesitated. She's brilliant, Mum. Margot's gaze sharpened. She's brilliant and disobedient. That night, they hosted a small gathering of old friends, lawyers, board members, a celebutant or two. Leila sat poised in the living room, drained by the pretense. One guest complimented her insights on cybersecurity, another asked about her new sabbatical project. Leila deflected both, offering rote niceties. When the last guest departed, Ethan found her in the hall. The hush of the echoes still lingered where the guest's laughter had been. He cupped her face. I'm sorry I didn't intervene. Leila's eyes glistened. It's not on you alone. He swallowed. I love you, and I want you to be free, truly free. Leila rested her forehead against his. Then help me tear down these walls. His nod was firm. I will. And in that embrace, Leila felt the first real crack in the glass castle, a fracture that promised freedom if she had courage enough to shatter it. Leila sat at her compact home office desk long after midnight, the glow of her laptop screen illuminating every line of worry and determination on her face. The city beyond her window slept, but in her mind, deals were unfolding, balances shifting, fortunes being made and remade. She leaned back, fingers steepled, and glanced at the pristine whiteboard on the wall, bullet points of investments past, potential targets, risk assessments. No one knew she was here at this precise hour, doing what she did best, identifying opportunities others dismissed, then acting decisively before the rest of the world caught on. It began a little over a year ago. Leila's first venture into private investing started timidly. She transferred $25,000 from her savings into a brokerage account. That initial deposit felt like a test. Could she manage capital as effectively as she managed complex software deployments? Late nights, she pored over pitch decks, scoured regulatory filings, and attended virtual founder meetups. Each investment she made was a calculated gamble, a small code snippet in a much larger algorithm designed to accelerate her financial independence. Her most inspired bet was on EcoVolt Dynamics, a tiny eco-battery startup based in Portland. Their team had developed a proprietary graphite mesh anode capable of increased charge cycles by nearly 1,000%. Leila studied their white papers, verified patents, and even called their CTO for an impromptu technical review. Convinced of its potential, she allocated $5,000, only 20% of her initial fund, to EcoVolt. She diversified the rest across 2 other promising ventures in telehealth and AI-driven agriculture, always mindful of balancing risk versus upside. For months, her portfolio crept upward modestly. She tracked it obsessively, refreshing the brokerage app on her phone, annotating charts with growth projections, and marking milestones on her wall calendar. Each percentage gain felt personal, a validation of her instincts honed from years of debugging and feature launches. She continued to smile and play her part as Ethan's doting wife, attending weekend brunches at the mansion, supporting his parents' charitable events, and humoring dinner table etiquette. No one suspected that beneath her composed exterior, a financial revolution was quietly unfolding. Then the day the Fortune 100 acquisition announcement hit, Leila was in her car, idling at a red light. A flash notification from her brokerage app splashed across the dashboard screen. EcoVolt Dynamics acquired by Orion Energy for $2.5 billion. Her breath caught. She tapped the notification. Her 58,000 shares had soared in value overnight. $5,000 had multiplied into nearly $3 million. She let the car roll into the intersection, parked, and stared at the numbers as the traffic noise faded. Her heart thundered. This was more than a windfall. It was metamorphosis. Back at her apartment, she sat at her dining table, spreadsheets printed and spread like a mosaic. $18 million glowed in black and white, raw figures she never imagined seeing outside a boardroom. She tapped at her phone, calling Nina, her oldest friend and confidant. "Nina, something crazy just happened," she whispered, voice trembling with exhilaration. When Nina answered, Leila held the phone away from her ear, staring at the documents. "I'm a millionaire." Not an approximation, 18.4 million. Nina's response was a mix of laughter and stunned silence. "Leila, that's insane. What are you going to do?" Leila leaned forward, eyes blazing. "Exactly what I've planned, except now on a scale I didn't even dare to dream." She detailed her strategy, establishing a protected trust, forming shell entities to insulate her assets, and drafting preliminary divorce paperwork to ensure a clean separation if the marriage ever turned toxic. Nina encouraged her caution and celebrated her victory, reminding Leila that power was sweetest when wielded unexpectedly. In the days that followed, Leila's life split into 2 stark realities. By day and evening, she continued her role at the Aldridge mansion, gracious fiancée, attentive hostess, polite listener to Margot's wardrobe critiques and Charles's philanthropic proposals. Ethan mentioned nothing of her newfound status. She suspected he remained blissfully unaware. Under chandeliers and beside polished silverware, she allowed polite conversation to mask her secret transformation. Each compliment she received was a reminder of her disguise, an actress playing a part written by others. At home, behind locked doors, she orchestrated her own narrative. She booked a discreet consultation with a top corporate lawyer, Jordan Blake, dialing his number with the same precision she used to deploy new code to production. She asked for guidance on offshore trusts, nominee directors, and asset protection. Jordan's voice was professional yet encouraging. "We'll set up a Delaware LLC for your portfolio. Then a trust in the Caymans. You'll control it entirely, legally and invisibly." Leila nodded against the phone's receiver, her pulse steady. This was her domain now. One Sunday afternoon, Ethan invited her to a luncheon at his parents' country club. The manor's porte-cochere gleamed, tennis courts lay empty beneath summer skies, and Margot took opportunities to suggest post-nuptial activities, charity committees, art auctions, family retreats. Leila listened politely, her mind drafting the language of separation. After salad, Charles leaned in, glass of Chablis in hand. "I hear you've made some wise investments, Leila. Perhaps you'll teach our board a thing or two." He smiled, unaware of how prescient his remark was. Leila nodded, mouth curving in an inscrutable grin. That evening, back in her apartment, Leila retrieved her printed marriage contract from a hidden safe. She glanced at the pen marks where she had signed under polite duress. She placed the contract next to her asset statements and the divorce forms she had drafted in Jordan's presence. Paperwork and possibility lay side by side. One page surrendering rights she never truly had, the others staking claim to her destiny. She paused, fingertips hovering above the divorce petition. She felt no regret, only the electric thrill of autonomy. She closed the folder and locked the safe, retrieving a fresh blueprint from her whiteboard. Chapter 3: The Secret Flip. Beneath it, bullet points: maintain persona, finalize trust, prepare shell company. Each line was a command she would follow without hesitation. The world beyond the mansion walls was hers to navigate now, market open, door ajar. The next time anyone sought to dismiss her worth, she would remind them that she had become something they never predicted: self-made, fortressed by law, unstoppable. Her phone buzzed, Ethan texting about tomorrow's rehearsal dinner. She typed back a warm acknowledgement. Then she set the phone aside, fingers tracing the cool tabletop. She allowed herself a moment of quiet triumph. In the gallery of Aldridge portraits, she would be the ghost in the machine, unseen yet more powerful than any ancestor. Her wealth was secret, her plan in motion, and her next move would come on her own terms. Leila rose and walked to the balcony. The city lights shimmered like distant stars, the night breathing around her. She pressed her palms against the railing, chin lifted, eyes closed. The wind whispered possibilities: Bali beaches, tech conferences, investments yet unborn. She inhaled deeply, savoring the mix of jasmine and electric promise. The castle of glass around her felt porous now. She could see the horizon beyond, marked by code and capital. Tomorrow she would wake early, resume her code reviews, and patch vulnerabilities for global platforms. She would smile at Ethan as he poured her coffee, and she might discuss Margot's gala suggestions without flinching. But beneath it all, her empire would stand secure, an invisible fortress built from ambition, acumen, and audacity. And when the time came, she would step from the shadows and reveal it all. Leila turned from the balcony and returned inside. She flicked off the balcony light and flipped on her desk lamp. The whiteboard beckoned. Next steps: lawyer, trusts, shell, each a module in her personal algorithm for freedom. She uncapped a fresh pen and added a final note: control the narrative. Then she closed her notebook, allowed herself a quiet smile, and walked away. Tomorrow, the world would still see Ethan's fiancée, charming, composed, compliant. But Leila Thomas would know better. In her veins ran the quiet pulse of markets, the code of clandestine power, and the certainty of a woman who would never again sign away her destiny. Leila arrived at the corner office on the 20th floor of the Midtown high-rise, the city skyline glinting behind floor-to-ceiling windows. Jordan Blake's reception was discreet. No receptionist desk, just a polished brass plaque reading Jordan Blake, SQ. She checked her notes once more: goals, priorities, assets to protect, timeline for setting up trusts and entities. Her pulse steadied. Jordan Blake greeted her with a firm handshake and an appreciative smile. He was tall, salt and pepper hair slicked back, sharp eyes behind thin-rimmed glasses. The office was a study in minimalist elegance: dark wood shelves lined with law texts, a glass desk with a laptop and leather portfolio, awards for top counsel and innovator in asset protection. He gestured to a leather chair across the desk. "Leila, good to see you. Shall we begin?" She nodded, sliding into the chair. The air felt charged, serious. "Thank you for meeting on such short notice. I need to ensure my assets remain entirely separate from my husband's." Jordan opened a document folder, spreading printed copies of her prenuptial agreement on the desk. "I reviewed this," he said, tapping the first page. "It's concise but clearly drafted to protect post-marital assets acquired independently. That clause here is your foundation." Leila leaned forward. "Exactly. I've had significant gains recently, and I want full legal shelter." Jordan nodded, eyes crinkling at the corners. "Very wise. We'll proceed in stages. First, establish a Delaware LLC to hold your investment portfolio. Second, create a revocable trust as the LLC's sole member. Third, set up an offshore asset protection trust for an additional firewall. We'll appoint nominee managers to obscure your beneficial interest." He clicked through slides on his laptop: corporate veil diagrams, fund flow charts, dotted lines representing layers of ownership. Leila took notes, Delaware LLC formation, trustee selection, offshore trust jurisdiction choice, transfer agreements, and board resolutions. Next, Jordan continued, we transfer your brokerage holdings into the LLC. That requires assignment agreements and new share certificates. The revocable trust will hold membership interests, and you remain sole beneficiary. For the offshore trust, I recommend the Cayman Islands. The statutes there are robust and protective. Leila scribbled furiously. Timeline: LLC and revocable trust in 7 business days, barring delays. Offshore trust in 3 weeks, including compliance and due diligence. Simultaneously, we'll amend your will, naming trustees and beneficiaries aligned with your trusts. And draft a trust protector agreement so you can replace trustees if necessary. She nodded. I also want language for charitable giving, something separate so I can support causes without exposing my personal assets. Excellent, said Jordan, opening another folder. Here's a draft of your amended last will and testament, with clauses for educational grants to girls in STEM. We can designate your mother as primary trustee, then a corporate trustee as successor. Leila reviewed the text. That's perfect. Let's include a letter of wishes outlining the foundation's mission, and gift and estate tax considerations. Jordan made notes. Since these remain separate property, transfers under the prenup exemption should avoid gift tax. But we'll file a gift tax return if needed. I'll coordinate with our tax counsel. How soon can we sign? She asked. Today, for the will and prenup reaffirmation. We file formation documents within the week. I'll dispatch offshore trust instruments for your signature via secure courier. Leila exhaled. Thank you, Jordan. I feel secure. He closed his laptop and stood. Congratulations, Leila. Your legal fortress will be impenetrable. After she left, Leila paused in the hallway. The city lights below twinkled like distant constellations. She tapped a quick text to Nina, trust work underway. Feeling powerful. Back at the mansion, she slipped into her role flawlessly, complimenting Margot's new wallpaper choices, praising Charles's gala speech, and attending Ethan's board meeting in the study. Yet beneath the polished exterior, her legal fortress was taking shape. That evening in her home office, she reviewed the draft operating agreement for the Delaware LLC. She adjusted provisions to restrict distributions, require unanimous consent for equity transfers, and designate her trust as sole member. She initialed each page, then scanned and sent them to Jordan's team. Next, she logged into her brokerage account to initiate the share transfer. The screen prompted, confirm transfer to membership of T.A. Thomas Trust LLC. She clicked confirm. A chime acknowledged the pending transaction. She leaned back, satisfied. The shares now belonged to her LLC, owned by her trust, governed by her protector. Layers of protection, each reinforcing the next. On her printer tray, divorce papers lay ready, pre-signed, awaiting execution. For now, they were silent witnesses to her autonomy. Ethan found her in the study later, reading by the fireplace. You've been busy, he said softly. She closed the folder. Just updating personal affairs. He hesitated. Mom and Dad were stunned when we announced the divorce dinner. They didn't see it coming. Leila's expression softened. I knew exactly what I was doing. They gambled on me staying quiet. Ethan sighed. I never expected them to push so far. She reached for his hand. It wasn't just about me. It was about control. Now I control my destiny. He swallowed. I wish I'd helped you sooner. She smiled gently. You're helping now. Later, she emailed Jordan, assets transferred. LLC formed. Next steps. His instant reply read, offshore trust docs in progress. Call tomorrow for signatures. Leila closed her laptop and gazed at the mansion through her window. She had spent months playing a part in a grand charade. Now, in the legal arena, she rewrote the script. The glass castle her in-laws built could not contain her. She had become the architect of her empire, one clause at a time. Before sleep, Leila reviewed her loft safe, updated passwords, encrypted backups, and a small binder of original certificates. She archived every email exchange with Jordan in a secure folder and texted her assistant, "Close joint accounts, redirect statements to my P.O. box." Each task severed another link. She felt a profound sense of liberation. She also reviewed contingency plans, emergency funds, nominee directors, successor trustees, and confidentiality agreements, ensuring nothing was left to chance. She poured chamomile tea and reflected on her transformation. A modest brokerage account had become a sophisticated network of trusts and LLCs, symbols of autonomy and foresight. As dawn's first light crept through curtains, Leila fell asleep dreaming of empowerment, code lines turning into keys, courtrooms into gardens, her silhouette on an island of possibility. Tomorrow she would move from architect to conqueror. The lawyer's loop was complete, her hidden arsenal ready, and soon the world would see the masterpiece she had crafted. Leila stood before the imposing mahogany doors of the Aldridge dining room, her heartbeat steady, her expression calm. A single golden candelabra flickered inside, lighting the long table where memories would be shattered tonight. She inhaled deeply, smoothing the navy satin gown that Margot had selected, an ironic gesture of propriety. 4 months she had planned this moment, rehearsed every syllable, anticipated each reaction. Now the time had come to detonate the bomb she had carefully assembled. When the doors swung open, Margot rose from her seat, her pearls glinting in the candlelight. "Darling, you look radiant," she said, voice sweet as honey. Leila detected a quiver beneath Margot's composure. Charles Aldridge, seated at the head, offered a curt nod, his gray hair catching reflected light. Ethan stood beside her, suit immaculate, face drawn with tension. He offered a tight smile. "Thank you," Leila replied with measured warmth, stepping into the hushed room. Margot gestured gracefully. "Please sit." Leila moved to her place, servers gliding by with flawless timing, placing crystal stemware and polished silver flatware with near-ceremonial reverence. The center table was adorned with orchids and taper candles, their flames dancing in patterned shadows on the hand-painted wallpaper. Conversation started with polite commentary on the rose selection from Margot's garden and the merits of Charles's recent speech at the philanthropic gala. Leila responded graciously, her voice steady, as though they discussed weather rather than legacy and entitlement. All at once, Ethan cleared his throat, drawing every eye to the couple. "Leila has prepared remarks," he said softly. His voice shook. "Please go ahead." Leila raised her champagne flute, studiously calm. Servers paused in their steps, utensils hovering mid-air. The private chef and butler exchanged glances. Everything slowed. "Thank you for joining me on this special evening," Leila began. Her tone was graceful, unshakable. "I have 2 announcements." She allowed silence to stretch across the table. Margot's smile flickered, Charles's grip on his glass tightened. Ethan's gaze locked on hers, pleading. Leila continued. "First, Ethan, I think it's time we close this chapter." She set down her flute and placed a burgundy folder before her husband. In the candlelight, the embossed letters on the cover gleamed, "Petition for dissolution of marriage." The room froze. Charles's hands slammed on the table, rattling salt cellars. Margot's mouth parted, eyes wide. Ethan's face blanched. A stray waiter stumbled backward, almost knocking over a charger plate. The fine bone china rattled. Leila waited patiently until they absorbed the blow. "Second, Dad, I invited you here for a reason," she said, sliding a second blue folder across the table. "I wanted you to see precisely what I've accomplished." She opened the folder, revealing spreadsheets annotated in her neat hand, share certificates for EcoVolt Dynamics, trust documents for her offshore entity, account statements showing $22 million in liquid assets. "I became a millionaire overnight. All separate property, protected by the prenup you insisted I sign." The chandelier seemed to dim. Margot's hand flew to her throat, pearls trembling. "This is impossible," she whispered. Her perfect composure fractured. Charles rose from his chair in a single motion. "Where did these gains originate?" he demanded. His baritone voice filled the room. Servers recoiled behind him, their expressions stunned. Leila rose to meet his gaze. "Smart investments," she replied calmly. Due diligence and decisive action. I honored every legal obligation. You thought you were protecting your son's inheritance. Instead, you safeguarded my future. Ethan shook his head, running a hand through his hair. Leila, why didn't you tell me? Tears glistened in his eyes. She took a step toward him. Because this was never about secrecy. It was about power. And you never gave me power until tonight. Margot's voice cracked, fraught with indignation. You betrayed your family. Leila's tone grew firm. I honored the law. You treated me as a pawn. Tonight, I reclaimed my agency. Charles pointed a finger at her. We will contest this. You'll never walk away so easily. A clicking sound interrupted him, a signal. Jordan Blake, seated discreetly at the far end of the room, gave a curt nod. Leila met Charles's eyes. Good luck. My filings are complete. My trusts are funded. My exit is legally airtight. The tension snapped. Margot burst into a trembling sob, her mask of aristocracy dissolving. Charles glared at the papers as though willing them to disappear. Ethan sank to his knees, burying his face in his hands. Servers slipped away, whispers trailing behind them like ghosts. Leila replaced the folders and lifted her flute again. To new beginnings, she said, voice soft but unwavering. She paused, letting the words echo. Then she turned and left the room, heels clicking on marble, leaving a tableau of shocked faces bathed in candlelight. Outside on the terrace, the night air was cool and liberating. Leila closed her eyes, letting relief wash over her. She felt the surge of adrenaline fade into quiet triumph. Behind her, the muted crash of uproar reached through the open windows, a symphony of disbelief. Ethan joined her seconds later, voice hushed. Leila, I'm so sorry. She turned, her gaze steady. You can't apologize for standing by them. He took her hand, voice pleading. Can we talk? She studied him, gauging his sincerity. The moonlight outlined his features, regret and love mingled in his eyes. Later, she said. I need time to breathe. Ethan nodded. Of course. Leila inhaled deeply, tasting freedom. She glanced back at the mansion, its windows glowing like captive lanterns. Tomorrow, she whispered, we rebuild. Inside, the fallout was immediate. Whispers buzzed like cicadas behind closed doors. The private chef packed silver platters in hasty silence. Margot's sobs echoed down the corridor. Charles summoned his lawyers from his private study. Rumors ignited, she's worth millions, they'll come to court, the Aldridge name is at risk. Leila watched the drama unfold from the terrace, detached. This was the culmination of years of strategy, her prenatal investments, her counsel with Jordan, her meticulous legal maneuvers. Every step had led here, every sacrifice had been worth this moment of reclamation. Her phone buzzed, a secure text from Jordan. Trust confirmed. Offshore entity funded. Divorce petition filed. She allowed herself a small, private smile. She typed back, thank you. What's next? Jordan replied, we stand by for contest. Keep your counsel close. Enjoy the victory. Leila set the phone aside and looked up at the stars. She pictured Bali beaches, philanthropic initiatives she would launch, code she would write. The future stretched before her like an open road. No spouses' mansions, no gilded cages. Just her vision and the work she loved. A soft step behind her signaled Ethan's return. He came to stand beside her, silent vigil in the wake of chaos. I stayed, he said quietly. She placed a hand on his chest. I'm glad. He exhaled, relief mingling with anxiety. What happens now? Leila met his gaze, her voice clear. Now we live by our own rules. He nodded, eyes shining. Together. She paused, feeling the weight of her choices. On my terms, she said. Then she offered him her hand. Shall we? Ethan took it without hesitation. Together they walked down the terrace steps toward a new dawn, leaving the echoes of the explosion behind them. The mansion's lights dimmed, the candles guttered, and a chapter closed forever. Leila's future, at last, began. When they reached the driveway, Leila retrieved her phone and sent Nina a single message. It's done. Moments later, Unstoppable lit her screen. She slipped the phone away, heart light. Ethan opened the passenger door. As they drove off, Leila rested her head against the window, watching the mansion recede. The engine's hum felt like a promise. Her future, built on her own terms, had truly begun tonight. In the days following the explosive dinner, the Aldridge estate felt like a riot caught in amber. The drawing room's opulent silence was shattered by whispered conversations and rehearsed outrage. Margot Aldridge moved through the halls like a wounded queen, clutching a tissue and rehearsing her scathing letter to her attorneys. Charles paced the library, phone cradled awkwardly against his ear as he demanded emergency meetings with high-priced counsel. The old guard of the Aldridge Empire, used to smooth facades, now fumbled in shock. Portraits of stern ancestors, once symbols of unshakable lineage, bore silent witness to a family on the brink. Leila woke before sunrise, feeling neither regret nor remorse, only a quiet satisfaction. She brewed tea in her small apartment and reviewed her messages. Confirmations of trust formations, acknowledgement from her foundation board, and a gentle wave of congratulations from friends and colleagues. The outside world remained blissfully unaware of the familial upheaval on Pacific Heights. For Leila, this moment was less about vengeance than vindication. She had honored every agreement and used the law to protect her future. Now, she would use her resources to build something lasting. By mid-morning, Leila's attorney had fielded frantic calls from the Aldridge legal team. They attempted to assert undue influence, contest the validity of the trust formation, and invalidate her prenuptial signature under claims of coercion. But Jordan Blake's defenses were airtight. He responded with polite legalese. Our client acted of her own volition with full counsel. All documents have been executed in compliance with applicable statutes. Each reply from him felt like a hammer driving nails into the coffin of their objections. His confidence reassured Leila. No appeal could unravel the meticulous structure she'd built. Ethan reached out, his voice measured but strained. Leila, my parents are devastated. They feel blindsided. She recognized his genuine remorse and the tangled loyalties that bound him. I've explained everything to them, he continued. But they have to protect their legacy. They might appeal. Leila pressed her lips together. She cared for Ethan, but this was her fight now. Let them, she said softly. I've built this for a lifetime of autonomy. Appeals won't change the facts or the law. The next week, tabloid blogs smelled blood and circled like vultures, spinning headlines. Tech bride slams billionaire family, and prenup pandemonium at Aldridge Manor. Leila chose not to engage. Instead, she issued a public statement announcing that she would step back from high-stakes investing temporarily to focus on her new nonprofit, Code Forward, which provided scholarships and mentorship to girls in technology. The press release emphasized empowerment and community, deftly shifting the narrative from scandal to service. Within hours, messages poured in from aspiring programmers worldwide, eager to join her cause. Inside the Aldridge mansion, Margot confronted Charles in the grand foyer. We underestimated her, she admitted, voice raw. She played us at our own game. Charles exhaled, gaze drifting to the empty guest suite door. We should have supported her ambitions, not contained them, he replied. Margot's pearls lay forgotten in her hand. I never thought I'd envy her freedom, she confessed. Charles nodded, heavy with regret. Perhaps we needed a daughter-in-law to teach us humility. They shared a moment of uneasy reconciliation, two proud figures humbled by a woman they once dismissed. Meanwhile, Ethan moved out of the family home and into a modest downtown flat, citing solidarity and a need to reflect. The boardrooms and charity balls continued without him, but news of his rift with his family earned him unexpected sympathy. He arranged to meet Leila for coffee in a simple cafe. No chauffeurs, no velvet chairs, just two people grappling with trust and betrayal. I've never been prouder of you, he said quietly, eyes misty. And I've never felt more lost. Leila reached for his hand. We can't go back, she replied, but we can move forward, together, if you're willing. On a crisp morning, Leila flew to Bali. She had arranged a private villa overlooking terraced rice paddies, an oasis of emerald calm. As the plane descended over rolling hills and sapphire sea, she felt anticipation shimmer like sunlight on water. Her suitcase contained linen dresses, sketchbooks, and an invitation to address a global tech summit. The villa manager greeted her with a fragrant garland of plumeria. Flowers scented the air as she inhaled deeply, tasting liberation. In Bali, Leila woke to roosters and ocean breezes. She practiced sunrise yoga on a wooden deck overlooking the valley, then drafted keynote slides for her upcoming talk on women, wealth, and Web3. She emailed CodeForward's board, launch date, September 1st. Budget approved. Mentors confirmed. She replied to messages from applicants in Lagos, Nairobi, and Johannesburg, young women hungry for opportunity. Her investments continued working in the background, managed by her legal team. She smiled at the thought. Her life's work would now empower others. Back in San Francisco, the Aldridge empire endured. Court challenges fizzled out, dismissed as meritless by a judge who praised the clarity of the prenuptial language. Margot joined a women's leadership retreat and spoke candidly about her misjudgments. Charles redirected his philanthropic focus to entrepreneurial education. Both emerged wiser, if chastened, their veneer of untouchability forever cracked. Ethan flew to Bali for Leila's summit. He sat in the front row of a glass-walled conference hall, watching her stride onto the stage, radiating confidence. She spoke not of betrayal or revenge, but of agency, mentorship, and innovation. When she unveiled CodeForward's first class of scholars, teen girls from 5 continents, Ethan felt awe and pride coursing through him. Afterward, he approached her beside a reflecting pool. "You're changing lives," he whispered. Leila's eyes glistened. "We are," she replied, linking her arm with his. Under a canopy of stars, Leila walked the villa's stone path with Ethan. The scent of plumeria and distant waves filled the night. She paused, looking up through swaying palms. "I never imagined this," she said softly. "That I'd build more than wealth. I'd build purpose." Ethan wrapped an arm around her, his support unwavering. "And I'm honored to stand by your side," he murmured. The next morning, Leila sent Margot a handwritten note. "Thank you for teaching me resilience. I hope you find your own freedom." Weeks later, Margot replied on embossed stationery, "My dearest Leila, I'm proud of you. Please forgive my blindness." Leila folded the letter and placed it into a scrapbook chronicling her journey, contract excerpts, candid photos, and Margot's note of reconciliation. Months passed, and CodeForward's inaugural cohort graduated. Live-streamed ceremonies showcased their triumphs: software demos, startup pitches, internship offers. Leila watched from Bali, tears of pride mingling with joy. She lifted her teacup to the screen. "To the next generation of women who will reshape tech, break ceilings, and code destinies," she toasted. Her story became legend, a case study in law schools, a viral anchor for motivational podcasts, a chapter in empowerment anthologies. Yet Leila rose each morning the same way, brewing tea in her modest kitchen, sketching ideas on a whiteboard, responding to men's messages. The war rooms of her past had given way to the labs of tomorrow. One evening, perched on her villa terrace, Leila raised a glass to the horizon. The sun dipped beneath the Indian Ocean, painting waves in gold and violet. She whispered a vow, "I will never be defined by anyone's limits again." Her journey inspired countless women worldwide to claim their power. Design lives on their own terms, unbound by convention, with courage and conviction. The end. Love the story? Smash that like button, hit subscribe, and become part of the Morales Stories family. Your support helps us bring more powerful African tales to life. Thanks for watching. We can't wait to share the next one with you. See you soon.